Hello, bookish friends. I'm here to talk to you about what I read in the month of May. For the month of May, I read 8 books, and this is the order that I read them in. The first book that I read is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clearer. I believe that's how you say his last name. This book is about this young couple that moves into a house. They are working on renovations. One of them is home alone waiting for her partner to come home, and this family shows up and knocks on the door and says, "Hey, would you mind if we take a look around? I used to live here as a child and I just want to see how it looks." This woman feels bad and allows this family to come in her home, and then they basically don't leave. And shenanigans ensue. This book was so creepy. It was a point where I was like, I don't know what's real, I don't know what's not real. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I think that a little bit of it got repetitious after a while, but overall it was a decent book. The next book that I read is Welcome to the Huandong Bookshop. That is really hard to say. This is a translated work, and it was translated from Korean, and it's really just a contemporary fiction about the lives of the people this bookstore affects. There's a woman that comes and starts to crochet. There's a teenager that comes for tutoring lessons. There are so many little lives that this bookstore is important to, and that's what this book is about. It is classified as a healing fiction, and it was just really nice to sit down and read something so comforting. I gave this book a 4 stars. The next book that I read is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This book very much reminded me of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Like, there is the Hollywood aspect of everything, but essentially this book is about this skater named Katerina and her skating career, and also her relationship with her skating partner. Whether that was romantic, just skating, how well they did together and separate. They went on to try out for the Olympics. I don't want to spoil too much. I listened to the audiobook and it was so good. It is a full cast narration. I felt like I was listening to like TMZ about these people, and it was just so good and so juicy, and I really, really liked this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The book after that, I wish I could say that I enjoyed. I ended up reading Pen Pal by J.T. Gessinger. It's my first J.T. Gessinger book. I'm not a dark romance girly, but this was a dark romance. So I know that this is probably for a totally different audience, which is totally fine. I acknowledge that I'm not the audience for this. So basically, you start the beginning of the book with a funeral, and our main character goes home and she thinks somebody's following her. She is having all these issues around the house because it's an older house. And she hires an electrician. He says everything's fine. She hires a roofer and ends up developing a relationship with him. It's very insta-lovey for the roofer to say, "I don't ever fall for anybody," for his friends to say, he does not ever get involved with anybody, and then all of a sudden he's like insta love with her. That part was a little frustrating. Also, it is a very, very spicy book, and I felt like every other chapter was just smut. And some of it made me a little nauseous, I'm not gonna lie. Like, nothing super dark, but just some of the verbiage. Like, if you actually listen to these kinds of books and you like take in what they're saying, sometimes it makes me a little nauseous. Not gonna lie. Anyway, I ended up giving Pen Pal a 2.5 stars. The only reason that I finished this book is because there is a thriller aspect to it. I wanted to know who was following her, and she also keeps finding letters around her house, and I wanted to find out who was leaving her letters. That is the only reason I finished this book. The next book that I read was The Anxious Generation. This is a nonfiction about how technology is rewiring our brains and how social media is just causing like attention deficit, the inability to actually form relationships, and how it's causing a lot of anxiety and depression in kids. The author says that the anxious generation is anyone born from 1995 afterwards. I'm right on the cusp of that, and it is really interesting listening to this book and thinking back to my childhood and growing up. You know, I had T9 texting. I didn't have a smartphone until it feels like college, and even then it was not very smart, but I really didn't grow up with technology like that. Like, I still hung out with my friends in person. I still played outside with my friends. I still didn't have these online relationships with my peers. I mean, yes, we did discuss things online, but it wasn't like it is today, where nobody has like an in-person interaction, and these kids are not going to be able to sit down and have a conversation because they're so busy focused on these. And it just kind of is really sad to think about. He does offer some solutions in the book, which was great, but I hope that more people read this book and take those solutions to heart, especially schools. Anyway, I digress. I ended up giving this book a 4 stars. I did feel like it got a little repetitive in some parts, but I did gain a lot of information from this book, and I really, really would recommend it to anybody that wants to discuss these kinds of things and learn about what's going on in our future generations' brains, because what the phones have done to them and what social media has done to them. It's really scary, guys. The next book that I read is Aragon by Christopher Paolini. I read this book as a kid, and it took me a really long time when I was a kid to read this. I read this in 4 days. I was so happy to revisit this story. I need to continue on in the series now. I never read further when I was a kid. I just decided this book wasn't for me. And now that I'm an adult and I can be more critical of fantasy, this is a really good book. I think that this is one of the better dragon stories. I will say I did listen to the audiobook while I was reading, and the narrator is a male and he does this like really deep gravelly voice for Saphira, the dragon, and it just threw me off because she's female, so I kind of picture her with like a Galadriel-esque voice, but it just threw me off. I guess I'll tell you what this is about. Aragon is about a young boy named Aragon, and he is out hunting in the woods just for his dinner, and this rock appears out of nowhere. He ends up taking it home, and it hatches into a dragon. And dragons are very rare in this world. There's only the king who has a dragon, and then he's got a horde of dragon eggs. And the only dragon riders support the king, and the king is very corrupt. So the king starts tracking down Aragon, and he has to go on the run for his life and also learn how to own a dragon, ride a dragon, and use his magic abilities that he gained from getting a dragon. And it is such a cool coming of age story, and I'm excited to pick up the next book. I ended up giving Aragon 4 stars. The next book that I read is a little novella. It is called The Fall Risk by Abbi Jimenez. It is on Kindle Unlimited. I think that's the only place you can get it. It is about these neighbors, and they wake up one morning and find that they are stuck in their apartments because their stairs were accidentally torn down. And so one of them is already on crutches and he can't use the ladder, and the other one doesn't want to go anywhere anyway. So they end up forming this kind of bond over being stuck upstairs. And it was really adorable. It is a little insta-lovey, but I really enjoyed this story. I think the ending was very abrupt, but it was a novella, so that's kind of expected. And I'm interested to see if she's going to do a companion novel for their friends, because there's more than one love story in this little novella, and it's really cute. I ended up giving Fall Risk a 3.5. The last book that I read is The God in the Woods. This book I thought was going to be a fantasy. It's not. It's a thriller. This book is historical, set in multiple timelines. There is a timeline in the 60s and a timeline in the 70s, and this well-to-do family, has a summer camp, and they have 2 children, and both of them went missing different times. One of them was in the 60s, one of them was in the 70s. You kind of get the snippets of the back and forth of what happened. I just wish that the timeline was a little more succinct. I understand why the author decided to tell it the way that they did with flashing back to the past, but I kind of wish there had been a little bit more adding up in the end because it was very confusing, especially when listening to this book. Overall, I did give this book a 4 stars, and I definitely would recommend it. It had a very good twist, and I don't know, but the ending just kind of fell flat for me. I think that it didn't feel true to the detective's character of what happened in the end. And it kind of leaves you like on a, not necessarily a cliffhanger because there's not going to be another one, but it just leaves you wanting a little bit more at the end. But overall, not a bad book. 4 stars. As far as statistics go, I read 8 books, 1 physical, 6 audio, 1 ebook. I read a total of 2,862 pages. That is an average of 92 pages per day. It took me about 5 days per book with an average rating of 3.6. I read 5 female authors, 3 male authors, and 6 new-to-me authors. I read 1 YA and 7 adult. I read 1 fantasy, 1 contemporary, 3 romance, 2 thriller, and 1 nonfiction. My favorite book of the month was probably The Favorites. I really did enjoy that book, closely followed with Aragon. I really enjoyed diving back into this again, but there was something so fun about the Hollywood gossip scene, but knowing it's just characters in the book. It's just messy and a lot of fun to read. But that's all I read in the month of May. I'm hoping that June I will have a lot more read. Have you guys read any of these books? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you don't know what to comment, comment an egg emoji because of Aragon and finding the egg. I have a lot in store for the month of June, so if you'd like to follow along and see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys soon in a new video. Happy reading. Hyunam Dong. Hold on, let me Google how to. Hyunam Dong. No. Okay. This book reminded me of the 7. I didn't do any math yet, so hold on. Closely followed with Aragon. Oops. Are your opinions the same as mine? I hope to hear from. No.